record this. So if you do have questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat or shoot them if you want to wait till the end. I will take them verbally. But that's where we're looking at any questions. And if I don't answer it right away, it's probably because I'm going to address it later in the conversation. But if I don't get to it, please make sure to poke me and remind me and let me know. So we're going to kind of get started here. First off, thank you. A lot of this Q&A is driven by feedback from parents that we've been getting via email and questions and things like that. First is we are all in this together. Our focus is that the team as a whole entity. It's not just about one individual or two individuals or one group. Whenever we look at everything, we're looking at the group as a whole. It's not going to be easy. One of the things that I have found is that we have some people that feel like I get a fair number of complaints on both sides of the board. There's this mentality that if everybody's unhappy, then we're doing the right thing. And some people feel that we're too strict in how we're running things. Some people feel that we're not strict enough. And we are trying to mitigate that and to mitigate that waters. It's been a challenging time. And we're trying to keep everybody equally unhappy and happy at the same time. We have to exercise patience and empathy, both with the process and with the staff as a whole. And it's our first focus is the safety of our athletes, safety of our coaches, and the safety of our families. What we're doing training-wise and practice-wise is secondary. Are we able to get in the quality practice we like? Probably not. Is it going to get better as we go? Hopefully. That's the general goal of this, is that we will get better as we go. We have to work to limit the understanding of what we have time and space-wise. I would love to have early morning workouts. I would love to have workouts from 5 to 7 every day. There's a lot of things that I wish we could have that we don't have access to right now because of various reasons at the facilities and that we have to work with. And so we have to adapt based on that. This is a difficult virus to understand. I spent a lot of time talking with doctors on Monday because my English degree, while I spent a lot of time in school, doesn't really give me a whole lot of background in terms of understanding a virus. And so I spent a lot of time on Monday talking with people that know a lot more about this than I do and trying to understand more what we can do to create an even safer and better environment for our athletes and to evaluate, especially as we're looking at indoor facilities and moving indoors, what that will entail. And it changes often is the one thing that I have learned. We do need to be vigilant. We need to mask up. We need to keep 6 feet apart. And we need to make sure we're watching our hands. This is a situation where we are going to make mistakes and we are going to learn from them, whether it's recent situations or whether that's things that we don't even know that are going to happen. There's things we're going to misstep on, and it may feel like we're erring too much on the side of caution, and I would rather have that be the case than not. And then we have to adapt to new conditions and regulations daily. Everything changes. I had several phone calls today that by the beginning of the day, I had one thought in terms of our practice schedule. By the end of the day, we have a completely different plan. And that's tough. That's tough to adapt to, and that's based on facility restrictions and requirements that we're going to go over today. It is important to demonstrate kindness and forgiveness to each other, especially the staff and especially with your teammates. We're inevitably going to have somebody that shows up at practice with a positive test. We're going to have somebody that is exposed, and it's going to be important to express compassion and empathy because it's not going to be intentional. They're not going to want to do that. And it's important to demonstrate both that kindness, both at home with our kids, when we're coaching the athletes, and when we're talking with each other. This isn't something that's easily understood in terms of transmission. And there's a lot of misinformation and miscommunication, a lot of different things that are coming out there. And as much as we'd like to say, oh, I'm an expert, we don't have all the right answers all the time. And it's okay to say we don't know. I think I've said that multiple times in the past 4 days. So first, let's talk about the new facilities we're bringing online. We've got Northfield, the JCC, and the Lake Forest Club, which isn't necessarily a new facility, but we are re-upping our commitment so that water polo can have a little bit more access. Northfield is going to be the home for water polo, D5, and Novice. For those of you that haven't been on the campus there yet, this is a very strict campus that we had to work for 4 months to be able to get back into. We are one of the few school teams that is allowed to practice at a high school. Evanston has shut down their access. Niles North has shut down their access to club programs. So for us to be here, we had to present a program and a protocol that was going to be approved by their medical professionals as well as their institutional professionals. to comply and adhere to IHSA, IDPH, and CDC guidelines and exceed that. And we did that, and we're very proud of that. Athletes will enter through door 1. Those of you that think, oh, this isn't me, this might be you in the fall. This is going to be one of our facilities in the fall. So you'll enter in the parking lot. The check-in will be at the gate. There is already lines, and I'm going to show you some pictures of how that's set up. They go through the top door, come down into the pool. We have 12 spaces, 10-foot spaces mapped out, as well as exits and entrance spaced so that athletes are not entering the facility until the previous group has exited the facility. And so that's one of the things that we're really working hard to do. So when we go and we look at Northfield campus, so this is the external space. You can see the, I'm gonna get my handy dandy today. This is our lineup out here. So we have the kids lined up, and I don't like that at all. So sorry. This is my perfectionist side coming out. Nice line here going out, and they're spread 7 feet apart. Parents can sit and wait for athletes to be admitted, but generally speaking, this is where they're going to be lined up outside the gate. They are lined up 7 feet apart instead of 6 because we want to put for room of air. Athletes are expected to be masked. This is where their temperature check will be taken, as well as their contact and symptoms. When we're looking at the inside pool, we have marked off the inside pool for both the interior. There are 6 spaces on each side that are marked 10-foot squares, and this is where athletes are allowed to be in this space. And so when they first come in the building, they will actually go around and down, and then this is actually, I guess, from the deep end. So the athletes are going to come in from this end, and then they're going to walk around the deep end, and then the first athlete in will be lined up over here by the office. At the end of practice, nobody leaves until everybody's ready, and then they're walked out and escorted out by coaches 6 feet apart. Again, this is something we take very seriously. The doors up here, the reason this picture is from up in the corner is because I was opening doors. The doors up at the top corner will be open. The doors in here and here will also be open so that we have adequate flow. Again, in our indoor facilities, we are limiting it to 12 and keeping that restriction pretty clean and separate. The coaches have been coaching there for 3 days. We feel pretty good about the protocols we have in place, and we're excited to have more people in there. The next facility is the JCC. Again, I went over and met with them. We're going to be I don't have pictures of that space marked out. We're going to be marking that out on Monday, because that's when we start on Monday. You're going to be coming in through the back entrance of the JCC. There'll be a check-in on the left side. There is a door that leads directly into the pool area. And then it'll be a similar setup to Northfield, where athletes will have areas on both sides.
Is it?
Both sides of the pool, where they're going to be able to line up and be 10 feet apart. Again, it's a 25-yard pool, so we have that space. No more than 2 athletes per lane, 12 athletes per group. Again, the group will exit, and they will be picked up on the right, and you'll drive off to the right and head out to the east of the building. So our JCC structure is very similar. Again, no more than 2 to 12 coach to athlete ratio. We'll be keeping it very spaced out. Again, minimizing contact with the major facility and trying to make sure that our athletes are kept safe. Again, this was another 4-month process where we had to talk with a lot of the facility to make sure that they felt comfortable with this and have it evaluated by the CDC and IDPH. Because our environment is chlorine-based, we're actually in a very safe setting, and they feel confident that our structure, by limiting it to 12, we're actually exceeding the CDC requirement in phase 4 and the IDPH requirement in phase 4, which is actually 50, and we are actually going below that significantly. For the Lake Forest Club, we have had this before. This is just a quick refresher. This is going to be the water polo facility in the mornings. On the weekend, they'll enter through one facility, kind of go through their space, and then exit through the back. Again, these are hour-long practices, spaced back to back. When we're outdoors, it's a little easier to kind of have practices go back to back. When we're indoors, we have to put a 10 to 15 minute window there. So again, Lake Forest Club is where we're going to be on the weekends with water polo. So facility updates. All of our indoor facilities will have no more than a 2 athlete per lane ratio and no more than 3 coaches at a time. The third coach is usually for registration and intake and making sure that they're helping with crowd control to make sure that our athletes are safe at all times. That's their priority. I was that coach on Monday. At Northfield, we're required as coaches to wear masks at all times. And even when we're on the pool deck, and I did it for 8.5 hours on Monday, and I was totally fine. And I have asthma and really baby lungs with weak lung capacities. So I think it'll be okay, especially for a lot of our healthier kids. CDC guidelines allow for 50 people or half capacity. We do not feel that that is responsible programming, and we're opting for a more restrictive protocol. Centennial is opening the splash pad and locker rooms effective the 24th. If you don't know about the splash pad, they have the splash pad on the north side of the facility. That's going to be opening up next Friday. I met with their facility. They are going to be allowing up to 100 people every 2 hours. And this space is going to be kept separate from our training space. So our exit and entrance is going to be different from their exit and entrance. We did get that confirmed today. And NTA athletes will continue to be encouraged to not use the locker rooms because those are going to be open. And even though they're going to be cleaned every 2 hours, I don't personally feel like that's a safe enough window for our athletes. And we're going to encourage them to kind of stay outside of that unless it's an emergency. Again, so questions that we've received have to do with programming priority, schedule priority, outbreak protocol, and registration and group moves. So I'm going to kind of go through all of this. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put in there. And we'll get to that as we go. So the first is, why are we still doing Zoom dryland if we are doing in-person swimming? Right now, we don't have consistent access to space at any of the facilities that allow for reliable enough and safe enough dryland activities for all groups. So we've talked with the high school, we talked with the park districts, and we were able to get an hour here, an hour there, but nothing that was consistent enough that we felt safe enough for our athletes to be a part of. We don't anticipate it being an option for the fall, so we'll probably be looking at an online dryland option for fall, at least initially, until the schools kind of settle in and figure out their space, and then they'll be able to figure out where we fit in. We are a second priority for the schools. We're not a primary priority, and so that's important to remember that we have to respect that. Next question is, why does the schedule change every week? We have more pools that open each week, and we have more relationships within the community than other programs. So we actually have more pool time than any other team in our area right now, indoor, outdoor, otherwise. With those facilities, we do have multiple groups to work with, and different restrictions may require adjustments depending those requirements. So as we add groups that are going indoors, for example, they're having to go to a 1 to 12 restriction where they maybe didn't have that restriction in the past. And so that changes what the schedule looks like as a result. We have also additional requests that I get from parents on a regular basis that we try to take into consideration. Parent and work schedules, summer school, other camps, other sports, and more. The goal is for the athletes to try to only miss one workout per week. That's not always achievable because we can't work around every single facet, but we are trying, and it is something that when somebody does bring an issue, we do take it to the plate, and that does require a reevaluation for week to week. We had one group where a number of athletes that were going to be at one particular camp, we tried to make sure that they were able to have a couple extra practice opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have had before. Next scheduling question. It feels like water polo often pays second fiddle to swimming. Why is that? Well, currently we have 70 active athletes in polo compared to 321 active athletes in swimming. Polo requires very different pool space that is difficult to arrange for and has taken a bit of more negotiation with facilities to acquire it as considered a contact sport in Illinois. It was actually really hard for us to get any space for water polo because many facilities did not even want water polo in there because it was considered a contact sport. So starting next week, however, we've been able to get 46 programmed hours per week for polo compared to 70 programmed hours for pool time. That does seem a little bit disproportionate, but that's because polo is going to have a lot of indoor pool time where they're 1 to 12 versus swimming where we're able to put more kids kind of in that long course pool space and be able to accommodate that. Again, we're also putting 1 to 12 over at the JCC starting next week, so that helps as well. One of the other questions we get is we don't want to train indoors. COVID has transferred more easily indoors. Generally speaking, this is a very valid argument. And it's something that is very common and something that, I mean, when we talk about restaurants, we don't want to eat inside in restaurants. We'd rather eat outside. We've talked with again, spent a lot of time when we were looking at coming into New Trier and looking at going into the JCC. We also had an incident of exposure with our program, spent a lot of time talking with medical professionals, vetting our plan. And we had to submit multiple, like I think I have a 34, a 40 page and a 24 page plan that we had to submit in order to get into the facilities that we're in the first place. And the only reason that we were able to accomplish this is because we did have it vetted by medical professionals. And given the nature of our environment, because it's chlorinated, we're able to open the doors and create a circulated environment. These professionals felt that our environment was very safe, especially because we kept that 12 or less athletes per workout. That's actually the key, is the less people you have, the less aerosol contamination you have, and the safer environment it is. And so we vetted it through not one, not two, but I think I talked to 5 doctors and 2 professionals within the nutrient environment, as well as at the JCC, where we talked about what this means moving forward. Some groups get more pool time than others, and it isn't fair. We evaluate group access based on group participation, group numbers, and the cost of participation in the program. Each group is allocated pool access based on what is given to the team and scaled according to the cost of participation. The number of workouts to the right does not indicate the dry land and yoga that is available to each group, only reflective of water time. So here's what we kind of have in terms of number of workouts that are available and the amount of time that's been allocated. You'll see there's a July cost and an August cost. This will be fluctuating depending on what facilities we have available. You'll see that Polo is going to go up because we're allocating more pool time to them. We weren't able to do that until this week. And so we are not increasing their rates until August, because that's going to be more in line with what similar groups are, like Junior Performance has a similar number of workouts compared, and we base that off of that sliding scale. Again, if you have questions or concerns about that, we're always willing to help you. But again, we want to try to, and that will adjust as we go through. We don't know what our fall season plan is going to be because we don't know what our facility availability is going to be. A lot of that is going to be based on what the school system is. A lot of it's going to be based on what we have at the Centennial versus the high schools. And it's not as simple of an answer as it may have been in years past. Next question, outbreak protocol and response. As you may or may not have known, I sent the email out yesterday. We did have a contact outbreak this week. And so one of the questions I want to make sure we address today is, what is our protocol in the event of an outbreak or potential exposure? First off, all affected groups will be suspended for 72 hours while we evaluate both the contact tracing and the protocol. Preliminary recommendation is that exposed athletes returning to workout have a negative test. Again, this is a protocol that we've vetted through various medical professionals. I'm not making this decision based off my ability to read Shakespeare. I'm basing it off of other people's ability to study and stay in school way longer than I did. There are 3 types of exposure. The first is third-party exposure, which is when somebody has contact with someone that may have been exposed. The second is potential direct contact, where they may have had extended periods of contact with a person with COVID. And then the third is a confirmed positive COVID case. As you may or may not know, the Flick Center is closed indefinitely because lifeguards showed up with positive COVID tests. They've been closed now since Friday. During that 72 hours, we will evaluate the contact tracing and protocol with guidance from local medical professional board and the facility where the contact occurred, because some facilities have a very strict policy that if there is a positive contact, the whole facility shuts down. Other facilities have a more relaxed procedure where they decide that we're just going to talk to the group that was affected and not worry about the next piece. And so we will make that decision based off of that. Regular communication is sent to exposed athletes, and a general communication is issued to the team within 48 hours, which is the protocol we followed in this last situation, which thankfully the athlete had the second negative test, and we were able to allow for the entire program to return to the pool tomorrow, which we're really excited about. And we're really thankful that this young person is not going to have to endure having COVID, because it does have long-standing effects. I learned a lot about what can happen down the road, even if you're a young person and have mild symptoms. It's a very scary thing. So important considerations with this: we have to work with multiple organizations, and the appropriate response may take time. It's not always the easiest or quickest thing. We have to check with the CDC, the IHSA, the IDPH, and more, depending on which facility we're working with. And sometimes that's a changing thing. The CDC comes out with different things each time. Now results aren't necessarily reported to them, so there's going to be different things that we have to work on in terms of getting that. Changing dynamics may result in a longer time frame for decisions to be made. That's a good question. Why do different facilities have different protocols when they all refer to the same CDC and IDPH? Because different interpretations based on different governmental bodies of the same things. It's a tough road. That's a really good question. I wish I knew the answer to that, but like the high school has the IHSA to consider, and they interpret the IDPH and CDC in one way. The JCC works with their organization nationwide, and they have an interpretation that they use. And Centennial has the Park District that they use their own as well. And so it's not as simple as like, hey, why can't we just use the CDC? As an entity for us, that's what I rely on, and that's what I look towards, and that's why we have a medical professional group that I refer to for help. Facility protocol does differ from location to location, and we will more than likely have to change our response as cases and governmental restrictions warrant, and there will not be a consistency between exposures. I wish I could say that the way we did things this time is going to be the same as how we do it next time, but as we learn more about the disease, as we learn more about contact and transmission, this is going to change. And it's wild, and it's different, and it's unpredictable. And I wish I had more answers, but I really don't. And that's also the same thing that kind of came through with a lot of the medical professionals I talked to, is that there's not really a single way that you can say that this is definitely going to be okay. And that's the scary part of this. This will inevitably happen multiple times. Patience and understanding is key. What we had happen over the past 4 days is not something that is an isolated incident. I wish I could say that because we did this and we're going to learn from it and it's never going to happen again. That's not how this works. And it's going to happen again. It's going to probably happen at another activity that your child is a participant in, or that you as a parent or you as a master swimmer is participant in. And we're going to have to adapt, and we're going to have to learn, and it's not going to feel unfair. It's going to feel, you're going to want to feel angry. You're going to want to lash out and have answers. And those are all very, very valid responses. And I think that it's important to understand that the leaders, whether it's me, whether it's the schools, whether it's the camps that your athletes are attending, whether it's, you know, the work that you're at, or the government, we need to understand that patience and understanding is key, and it's important to be kind. So now let's talk about something a little more fun. Let's look a little more forward, because I do have a question that kind of is in the comments that's a little bit like addressing here. How's registration going to work in the fall? It's going to be simplified. Athletes choosing not to continue the program will need to notify the office no later than August 15th so that we can notify waitlist athletes. Athletes will be charged $125 for registration fees, and this is going to go from September 20th to August 2021. So it's going to be the whole calendar year, and that'll be on August 15th. They'll be charged that day. All groups are going to be limited to 24 athletes to allow for a continuation for the 2 to 12 scheduling protocol when we move indoors full-time. We're not going to look at varying that at all, and so because we're anticipating needing to be flexible, and a 1 to 12 helps. Athletes on the wait list, either tier 2 or tier 3, will be notified as space becomes available. Some people will be able to come in as early as June 20th. We have a number of water polo athletes, or July 20th. We have a number of water polo athletes that are going to be ready to come in on July 20th because we have space for them. They're, well, on the swim side with that 321, we really don't have a whole lot of space on that side right now. When do we find out about group placements? Group placements will be emailed out no later than July 31st. The coaches have been meeting about it all week. We're also going to be meeting about it more next week to kind of clean up the last little bit of details. And we will email that out to you July 31st. All training groups are going to be limited to that 24 because, again, when we talk about going indoors, we are taking this very seriously. And even if phase 4 allows for 40 people, and I'm sure we've all been at those volleyball practices, that soccer game, or drove by a football game the other day, where it's a little bit more, when we're talking about an indoor environment and we're talking about swimming, we need to be a little bit more strict about it, and we need to take that a little bit more seriously. And that's one of the things that we're looking at. They will start in their new groups effective August 17th, because that's when we're going to have, that's when the high schools are going to, in theory, be starting to go back, and we'll have some better idea of what our high school availability is there. Again, the benefit of this is that you're going to have a 1-to-12 ratio or a 2-to-12 ratio of coach to athlete. And that's amazing. Like, that's a great thing. I mean, that's not something that you're going to get very often. I mean, I remember growing up and having 35 kids in my practice group. I was lucky if I talked to the coach that day. So I'm really excited that we're going to be able to provide this a little bit more attention, a little bit better detail to that. Season fees are going to be charged monthly, with new fees invoiced on the 15th and charged on September 1st. Again, those are probably going to fluctuate as we go, just like everything else. As we have more facilities, we will have more costs associated with that. Our facility partners, because of our relationships, have been great, and they've been willing to work with us. And they've brought down their normal rates because we're using less lane space, even though we're using the same amount of time, and they've been willing to work with us, which we've been extremely grateful for. But that still is going to mean that we have to get more pool time. Obviously, if we have a 1-to-12 ratio, that limits the amount of water turbulence and things like that. So like, the air is going to be better. Everything is going to be just a little bit better. Even though it's going to be smaller groups, it's going to be just a little bit better, which I'm really looking forward to. Active athletes will have the option, however, to go on hiatus for the month of August for $50. Again, I'm going to remind you of all this in an email several times before we get to that point. So don't worry if you forget, if you're going to take August off and just kind of take a break. That's totally fine. I 100% get it. One of the questions I've got in the comments is, are there any plans for competitions? We will be looking towards that. Right now, none of our facilities will allow us to dive off the blocks. And so that's something where once we're able to do that, we will start creating some opportunities to do that. The LSC, Illinois Swimming, does have the ability for us to host meets. And so as soon as that's something we're able to do, we will do that. Again, we have to stay within that 50 range. We have to really take into account the indoor facility space and those kind of things. And so it's going to be very different. It's going to look very different in the event that we are able to have some space allocated to us. One of the other questions I do get is, how can I help? Which is like my favorite question, because we are the coaches, while we are all full-time employed, while this is our job, this is our passion, this is a hard thing for us to do. The first thing is, remind your athletes to mask up, stay 6 feet apart, and wash your hands regularly. The number of times that we see athletes cluster together and they want to hang out together, and I get it. I would love to hang out with my friends again. But we've got to kind of remind them that their 6 feet needs to be apart. When you go to Centennial and Northfield, there are 6-foot spots marked out on the ground for the athletes so that they stay safe and stay where they need to be. And I encourage you to help them. One of the most viable things, like visual things that you can do, is have them hold a tape measure and back up until they're 6 feet apart. Back up until they're 10 feet apart. When you're working out, you should be 10 feet apart from somebody. And that's a really big thing. And it's a big difference to understand exactly how far away that is. And then demonstrate appropriate precautions on a regular basis, not just at practice. I saw one mom come online with a mask on. I'm a huge fan of that. That's something, the more you can demonstrate and make it fun. I have like 10 different masks, and I do coordinate them with my outfit. I did an interview with Fitter and Faster with a mask on for 2 hours. You could still hear me. It's something that you can wear and be comfortable in. Pay the money, get a good one. And that's all I can say on that. It's really worthwhile. My unicorn one has like a filter pocket in it. It's super soft and comfy. UV light to disinfect it. Again, unicorns for the win. That's kind of my jam on that. And then the last piece is be fluid and compassionate with the program, and grateful that we are in a community that is willing to work with our team to make this possible. That's a big thing. There's so many teams that don't have full time, or that are working in an indoor facility only, and they're having to make it work. And so they're putting in a lot of kids, and they're making irresponsible decisions because that's the facility that they're able to have. If you need a mask, let us know. We've got extras. We've got disposable ones. I have extra team ones. We'll be more than happy to get those to you. Our older kids, we had to order some new big ones because the ones we had weren't big enough. So we've ordered some big ones, and they're on the way. But they're like, we want this to be something. You can also order them on Elsmore. We have one available on Elsmore as well that you can order. That's a team one. Make it fun. The only reason a mask feels bad is if you make it like it's a task. If it's something that's fun to do, like wearing a seatbelt. I remember my parents, when I was in the car, they would pay us a nickel every time that we reminded them to put their seatbelt on, because they grew up in a time when there weren't seatbelts in the car and they'd forget. So it's something where you can create some fun ways to make this something that can help protect not you, or anything. If you haven't received a team mask, do let us know. We did pass those out at practice, and we do have some more. And if we run out, we'll order more. Like we got money back from Illinois Swimming, and that's what we're paying it for, is for the athletes to have masks. So I'm more than happy to order more masks. And if they haven't received it, just check in with your coach. We do have some that are in our gear bag that we have at practices, and we'll be passing. We've been passing those out, but we're definitely going to make sure that everybody has one. If you didn't get one, we didn't mean to forget you. So let's get in and get that. And then if you have any additional questions, they are washable. Yeah, I wash mine for sure. I wash mine all the time, even my unicorn one. And then maybe I'll make a team unicorn one. I wonder if anybody else would like that. But anyway, so billing question, Chris is already in it. He's good. All right, I'll wear a unicorn one. Nice pink one with an N on it. Again, if you have any additional questions, put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask. And if you have any billing questions, you can send those to, if you have questions, you can also send them to me privately if you don't want to send it to everyone. If you have any billing questions, feel free to send those to Kristen. She'll help you out with that. But yeah, we're excited. We're in the pool. We're excited we have these opportunities, and we appreciate your patience, understanding, and we can't thank you enough for being a part of our program. So if you have any questions, I'll stay on for as long as you need to. If you have a question that you want to ask, or unmute or whatever, if you just want to say hi. But that's all I got for today. This is it. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop.